on. Hello, welcome everyone. This is one more of the Optics TYC PR interest group workshops, presentations, paper reviews, journal clubs, and a variety of activities that we come up to offer to you related to PER to engage more of our TYC community in PER as users and as maybe producers too. Yes. So we are expecting 11 participants, and I got an email at least from one saying they're slowly logging in. But we have a limited amount of time, so we will start pretty soon. We are already 3:02, so I think we should start now. Let me just share one slide here with you. Oops, come here. Hold on a second. So hopefully you all can see this slide here in your screens. So this is being promoted by the Organization for Physics at Two-Year College, Optics, right? Optics is funded by an NSF grant. And we want to highlight to you that we have a few more workshops and activities coming up, one on May 12th and another one May 20th. And May 31st is the last day to submit an poster abstract for the tandem meeting. There's a two-year college tandem meeting in Sacramento that's on Saturday, just before the APT meeting. And if you can attend that, that's catered to and devoted and focused to the TYC community. All right. So that being said, I'll share the floor here with our colleagues, Adrian Madsen and Sam McKagan, the directors of FISPort. Thank you, Adrian and Sam.
Right. Well, I'll start by introducing myself. Hi, I'm Sam McKagan. I am the director of FISPort, and I have been working on this project since 2009, creating FISPort, and I'll say a little bit more about FISPort and what it is in a minute. Adrian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Adrian Madsen, and I started on FISPort as a postdoc in 2013 and have just kept going. So I have also been working on FISPort for, I guess, about 10 years now. And we're excited to be here today and share the Data Explorer with you.
So let me start out by just giving a quick overview of, well, actually, let me start with how many people here have used FISPort in the past. Just raise your hand, either raise your hand or use the little like reaction thing to raise your hand. Okay, so lots of, okay, sort of. So a few of you, some people maybe not familiar with it. Cool. So let me just figure out how to share my screen. There we go. Is that showing up for people? Okay, so yes. This is fisport.org. And it's a website for physics faculty to learn about research-based teaching and assessment and find tools to use in your classroom. So there's all sorts of great stuff in here, including expert recommendations, which are short, friendly articles about how to, basically they're answers to questions that physics faculty commonly have about teaching. So there are things that we hear over and over again at workshops like this, and then we write up an expert recommendation to answer some of these questions. So there's a whole lot of different things on various things, teaching methods, assessment, equity, diversity and inclusion, and all kinds of things that come up in physics classrooms. We've got the teaching section where we've got a list of, we've got some research-based curricula. So these are things that where we actually host the curricular materials on FISPort, And these are all open source things that if you're a verified educator, you can download for free. And then we also have a section on research-based teaching methods, which we define really broadly as any kind of either curricular material or teaching strategy, simulations, tools that you can use in your classroom. And then for each one, you can find all sorts of information about what it is, how to learn more, where you can go to get the teaching materials, and the research behind it. And then what we'll be mostly focusing on today is our section on assessment. And the main thing we have on FISPORT around assessment is we have a database of research-based assessments. So things like the FCI, which I know a lot of people have heard of. These are kind of standardized research-based assessments, usually multiple choice, although we have a lot of things on here also that aren't multiple choice. We also have like teaching observation protocols and things like that. But what we'll talk about today is the multiple choice assessments, which you typically give in your class at the beginning and the end to assess how much students have learned about a particular topic or about how their attitudes and beliefs about physics have changed over the course of the semester. And these things are really designed to assess your teaching, not to assess individual students. And so you can see like, oh, I give this pre and post and students really learned this concept, but not the other. And then you can use that to make adjustments the next term. So for each of these assessments, there's a page here where you can download the assessment. If you're a verified educator and registered on the website, see an example of it so you can decide if this is the kind of thing you'd like to use, learn more about it, learn how to score it, learn about the research behind it. We even have translations of a lot of these into other languages, and then learn more about the assessment. So we've got a lot of related resources, like, how do you choose which of these 8 different mechanics assessments we have to use in your class. And so you can read that expert recommendation to learn more. Or you can go to the FISPORT Data Explorer, which is what we'll be focusing on today to upload assessments. And so before we jump into that, I will stop and ask if anybody has, well, first of all, I'd like to know how many people have their own data in a file that they are ready to upload today. Can you raise your hand or make a comment in the chat if you do have data? If you don't, that's totally fine because we have test data, but I wanted to kind of check in on where people are at with that.
All test
I will
data.
take that. All test data. Okay, cool. And then I will also stop and see so what we'll do is we'll kind of walk you through the process of how one would upload the data and learn about that process. But first, what questions do you have for us about this?
Scott, this might be a good time for your question.
Yeah, then I see the response to I have Brightspace that I can pull the data from. And well, I'll start, when I started working, this community college was giving the FCI through the Brightspace. So the students would take it in class and it was proctored, but they did it on a computer. So I hope that's okay, an okay way to do it. And so I have that data in my Brightspace, but it comes to me in a spreadsheet, and then it doesn't tell me, well, it does tell me what answer they selected, but not A, B, C, D, or E. And so I kind of put a little bit of thought of how I could get it in the correct format, and maybe manually doing it might be the quickest, but unless somebody has a way to do that.
Is it where the spreadsheet actually has the text of the answer in it, or instead of?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, we've had other people with that as well. And Adrian, do you remember, I feel like there was somebody who wrote like a script to try to convert that from, you're muted, from
Oh,
the
I can't
F.
quite remember, but that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had this problem before. And and I can't remember. I think that somebody might have written some script. Is this for the FCI or a different assessment?
Yeah, it's for the FCI. And then I'll just say in the chat there, yeah, we always have it proctored. It's never taken in a non-proctored. They're, password, and they're taking it for the 30 minutes in the classroom. So it's just that we don't put it on paper. We have it on our computers. But yeah, and so I maybe I'll write the script. I'm not that. I'll have to learn how to code in spreadsheet, I guess. So
Yeah. Yeah, that is something I would love to have a better answer for you, but I don't. So, yeah.
And manually would be incredibly time consuming to read through it
Oh,
and
yeah.
convert all the, yeah.
I had years of FCI data all on a scorecard, and it wasn't one that I could read in the Scantron. So that was also painful.
Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, and I will, if you ping me, put your email address in the chat or something, I can try to look up what I remember learning about that, because I do think that there was somebody who had written a script for that, and get back to you if I learn anything about that. Thanks. Okay. What other questions do people have about FISPort or the Data Explorer? All right. Well, Adrian, do you want to jump right into Data Explorer stuff? And before that, we've got some instructions. Oh yeah, you've got those. Let me put the link to that in the chat. There are instructions for how to get the test data and log in. And what I'm going to do, because everybody should use a different test account, I just wrote down everybody's name that I saw on the Zoom and assigned you all a number so that everybody can have a unique number to log in with. And I will just put that, oh, whoops. I will put that in the chat, but I realized I only chatted that to Adrian, which is not. Adrian, can you put the chat, the Google Doc link in the chat? And if you look in the chat now, actually, yeah, you should see the Google Doc link, and then there's numbers assigned to each person, so you can know which test account. And Adrian, I'll let you. Adrian, you're muted.
So if everyone can open the small group instructions, you'll see on the Data Explorer page that you can log in, and you might be wondering, how do you get to the Data Explorer? If you start at FISPort, there's a couple different links, but there's an easy one on the home page where you can click on the button and get to the Data Explorer. If you are logged out, there's a little login here. And the test accounts are so that since we're uploading fake data, we're not putting that fake data into the national data set. So it's important that you do use a test account. So the login, you just change this number depending on which one you are. And the password for all of them is here. It's Data Explorer. So this would be a great time for everyone to log in. And then the other thing you're going to need is 2 data files. So they're here. So if you click on a data file, you can start by just taking a look at what's here. it makes a lot more sense if you actually have seen the file. And then you'll want to download it to your computer. And you would want to download the pre and the post test. So like here I can download, I've already done that.
And that file gives will give you a sense of like the kind of the format that your data should be in. Could you go back to the file?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of see there, in this case, there's a unique student ID for each student. You can also have a file that has your student names or like a numerical ID. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a something unique for each student. So that needs to be in some column. This one has some optional information in it, the major, gender, and highest math, but it could be, there's a variety of information that we can take. You're not required to put any of that in. And then it's got the answers to each of the questions. And in this case, it's in ABCD format. You could also have it in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this was the question that came up earlier about some programs will export it in a format where it just actually has the text of the answer, and we don't have a way to do that at the moment. So
Sam and Adrian, okay, the passwords that Explorer, awesome. So Sam and Adrian, for this beginning, can I actually share the screen and do this with all the participants? Okay, awesome. So this is what I was thinking. I just want to make sure we are all at the same pace so that this is really an effective workshop and we are all following that. So as you entered, so I hope everybody is going to the website of fisport.org. And then once you are at fisport.org, right? I went to assessments, and here I clicked here on the Data Explorer, okay? And hopefully we're all at the same page, and then we go log in.
There's also a link there on the home page in the lower right.
Right in the home page, right at the beginning. Are we good? So I'm going to log in with test 9. I'm going to assign myself the number 9. Is it okay, Sam?
Yeah,
the
that's
one,
perfect.
then
And I'm going to take 8 if I can, because I'd like to follow along as well.
all right.
So yeah, sorry, I didn't assign numbers to the organizers.
So Sam.McKagan plus test, and then you put your name, your number, 0, and whatever number you guys were assigned at gmail.com. And the password here, it's hidden here, right? But on that file, the password should be, and Karim just posted also on the chat, it is Data Explorer, right? So I'm going to just, right? Data Explorer, that's the password that you put underneath. Are we all logged in with our test accounts? I'm here, I'm test 09 user, it says here at the top. Are we all at the same pace? How are we doing?
And if any questions or if there's any questions or any troubles, feel free to just stick them in the chat or say them out loud, and I can chat with you in the background and help with anything that's not working.
Okay, so once we are here, so guys, you have to let us know if you're stuck, okay? Then we stop. I'm really in teacher mode here, right? Following the same pace as everybody in the class. So the next step would be right here, as they say, it's a 10-minute process or even less. You upload your data. So we go here, upload now. And it's, although we are using FCI, this can be used to analyze so many other assessment tests, right? So we are going to continue. And we click on next. And it says, explains all the steps that we are doing here. We're gonna get it started, upload the data, etc. So next. And it's explaining how the data sheet has to look like, some identifying column, some extra information if you choose to give, and then the answers to each one of the questions. So we're going to choose a file to upload, and I am going to choose first the pretest, open. So I am uploading the pretest. Are we all there? Did we all get an pretest? So on the chat, I also tried to share the pretest file with you guys. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and maybe you could download it easily. How are we doing? Are we all in the same spot? Did we all upload this? Do I get some thumbs up? Or anybody can then complain and say, hey, hold on a second. Yeah, anybody needs more time? No? Okay. I uploaded it. This is the part that we want to be participant driven. So we really want you to try this. Okay. So next. So there is some basic information, and I had already completed this before. I already tried just earlier with my username. So you will need to put the name of your institution. There's some basic information, even you are in the test file here in the test, there's some basic information you should include. So select a course. So I will say it's physics for engineers, but you can select a class. You are not going to have anything here yet. So you say whatever class. I know this is a fake data. Just put something there, right? And then choose an assessment. So we are choosing FCI here, large list, and I am going crazy.
Glenda, it's not going to let you upload the FCI for this one because you already uploaded FCI data for this class.
Yeah.
Or somebody did.
It's
so
me.
you'll have to pick a different class.
Got to pick a different class. Awesome. See, so create a new class. Great.
It won't let you upload the same assessment twice for the same class. And we're using the words course and class in a really specific way here. So like the course is like physics 21 or whatever it is. And then the class is like that particular instantiation. So it could be a term, or it could be a term in a section if you have multiple sections of the same course at the same time.
Awesome. So the only data you need to fill in now is what is in green that is really required. When you're doing this with your own data, you might want to do these optional parts and make it really detailed and specific to what you have.
And the optional parts are helpful for us because when we do comparisons, we can compare classes that were taught in different ways and say, these classes use these interactive engagement methods, and it helps to get a sense of what was actually happening in the class. So it's optional so that people will actually upload the data, but it is really helpful to fill out those kinds of things.
So I did do that for my own personal data here, but I'm following the steps as hopefully you are all doing too. And then we say, okay, now we choose the assessment. Yeah, I have here the FCI first concept inventory. So many other options, right? English, I am first uploading the pretest. And how many rows? There's about 20 rows. You can say 20, that could be, right? It's within 15% of the real number you have that. So it's just a ballpark number. Again, there are optional information, but I'm not going to complete them now.
In case people are curious why we ask how many rows, it's because we are searching your data file for the rows. So people will put their data in all sorts of different formats where they might have, a header row at the top, or they might have some sort of information about their course at the top and have the data actually start several rows down. And so we try to make it so that you can upload it in whatever format you have it in and not have to do a bunch of editing. And so in order to do that, we basically have to search your file for what looks like the chunk of data, and knowing how many rows of student data are in that helps us do that more effectively.
I think there's some machine learning coding behind this, because you see how smart this is going to be when I click next. So now it's trying to interpret the data that we uploaded. So it's asking me to confirm whether the first column is really, as according to its interpretation, a student ID. That's the name of the first column that we gave, but you didn't need to label a student ID, but this is understanding and expecting the first column to be a student ID. So I will say, yes, it is correct. Your interpretation that that first column is a student ID is correct. So I click, it's green now. So it's then.
To make sure everybody's caught up here, is
Oh, yeah.
everybody, yeah, has everybody gotten to this place on the Data Explorer? And if you haven't, let us know if you need help getting there.
Just put a note in the chat. If you can't speak up, then put a note in the chat or something. Let us know how you're doing, but we really would like you to do this together with us. Yeah.
And before you go on, I'll say a few things about this. So because this is a test data file, we've kind of named the columns well so that it always guesses correctly. If you have, you know, different column headers, it might not guess correctly every time. And if it guesses incorrectly, Glenn, can you just show what happens if you click on that X next to major? So you can, if you click the green check marks if it guessed correctly, you click the X if it didn't, and then it gives you this option to specify what's in your column. And so you can tell it, these are all the different, if you click on one of those ones with the caret next to it, it gives you options inside, like click on name there. Yeah, it gives you options. So, you know, some people might have the student's full name in there, but some people might have first and last name in different column. And so those give you sort of all the different kinds of data that we can accept.
Yeah.
And so you can just pick the one that it is.
Wow.
And none of this, the only thing that's required to have in your data file is student ID or name and the answers to the questions. All these other things are optional. And also, if you have a column that has information we don't take, I can't think of an example right now, but you know, sometimes you'll have some data about your students that we don't take. And in that case, you can just leave it pink where it says specify column, and we just won't import that column. We can still import the rest of your data, and we'll just ignore that one. Yeah, you can either select it as do not import, or you can just leave it pink and we'll ignore it.
So again, the only columns that really need to be in this file are first, some identifier for the student, unique per student. And you can create this, doesn't need to be really related to whatever exactly the idea of your school, right? You create anything that is unique for each. And then all the 30 questions. And here there are additional information. So this is additional, which is very useful later on. Major, gender, the level, math level, look at that. And now I'll continue going to the side. And now comes the questions. Finally, the questions are here. So I'll say, yes, this is question 1. And immediately it already expects and knows and detects that the rest must be all the other 30 questions. So it's asking, do we expect to see all the 30 questions in the list? I said, yes. And it's all green now. And it understood everything. So it was pretty smart in checking all the data.
Oh,
Yeah?
and one more thing before we move on. Where it asks for the student name and ID, one thing to know is that we don't store that information about your students. So as soon as you upload this file, what we do is we take your student names and IDs and we encrypt them using one-way encryption. And then what we store is this unique identifier that can't be mapped back to your student's last actual name, because we want to protect your students' anonymity. And so if you upload another data file later with the same student name and ID, or student name or ID, then we will it maps it the same way. Like it's a one-way mapping and it always maps to the same thing. So we can still match your students if you upload it later, but we can't get back your students' names. And we do that to protect their anonymity. So you don't have to worry about, you know, am I violating my students' privacy by uploading this ID? We can't see your students' names or IDs in this system. They're not stored in our system.
Are we following? Are we all at the same step? Yay, Scott always gives me thumbs up. I don't see other thumbs up, but Scott, you're being very helpful. Thank you. We're going to click on done. Yeah? Okay. So this first pre-test, before all the instructions were given, this file has been uploaded. So the post-test file that in my school I tend to apply in the last 2 weeks of class, and here goes post-test data. So we're gonna upload that. Notice that if you had actually extra student information, you could still later append that. It's possible. Upload post-test data. Let's do that. So choose the file. I'm gonna go to the post-test file, open. There you go. Click on next, same procedure. There is going, it's asking me how many rows this has, about 20 as well, just a ballpark number. The rest is optional, which when it's your own real data, please take a look at that more carefully. We're gonna click on next and move on.
Oh, and before you move on, click on setting there. Oh,
Can I go back? I don't think I
yeah, there's a back button there on the right at the bottom next to the.
Yeah, there is. Wow, I would never have seen that. Okay.
It is very small. Yeah. So click on where it says test setting.
All right, let me find
Down by the bottom.
yeah, setting at the bottom. Very good. It could be in class, in lab or recitation, in other monitored setting, or not monitored.
Right, because Scott was asking about how he administered it and what, so that is one way that you can mark that. And in theory, if everybody marked this, we could do research on, does this setting make a difference and things like that.
Yeah, that's very important. So Scott, just so you know, for instance, in my school, because I have a wild variety of teachers working with me, and the easiest solution was very complicated to think through this, but the easiest solution was that we had to deliver it online. So it is not monitored, but it's timed and students cannot save and continue later. There's forced completion. So within 30 minutes, that thing closes and the students get what they get. So the whole delivery of the process was done very carefully. The student, it's called a survey. Students do get extra credit for it. There's a whole conversation in class about it, but it has been not monitored for us, especially during COVID. And it ideally monitored, we agree, is best, but it's possible. It sometimes it was needed. All right, I'll move on. Can I move on? Yeah, moving on. So again, student ID, I'll say, yeah, you guessed it right. Major, yes, you guessed it right. Gender, yay. Math level, yay. I'll move on. Course grade, yay. Final course grade probably. And then questions. And yes, all the remaining questions are next. So it's all green, it's all checked. We agree with its interpretation. All right, so we are ready to visualize our data, and it's explaining to us what really was read here, etc. So there were 19 students in the pre, 16 in the pre, and the post. So the real match here is 15, that fully matched. So in graphs that compare pre and post, we're gonna see only 15 students. The ones that have just the pre-score, we may see 19, the post. Visualize, time to visualize. So the cool thing is this tab here called the visualizer. There's a lot of tips that you can follow, and I invite you to go and take a look at all the tips. I'm going to turn them off, but So as you hover your mouse here, there's a lot of information, and the black curve. So here is a plot of the percentage of students, but you can change to number of students. And the front one, the histogram of your class, it's going to be the percentage or number of students versus either normalized gain, raw gain. There's a slight difference in that calculation. Scores and score of the matched score pre and post. I like the score in that case. Before we even start talking about, I didn't turn that off. Before we even start talking about the gain and normalized gain and if effect size and all, I like to look at scores. So the black, either the black solid line or the dashed line are the national average values. And the blue solid or dashed is your class, is the class that you just created. So that will tell you something. So the dashed is the pre and the straight line, the solid line is the post. That will tell you something. How, if you have more data, perhaps these curves will look smoother. But I find that for me, I like to see the breakdown by topic. That's one of the things I also go next. Breakdown by topic. So, boy, I didn't. So breakdown by topic. So the FCI is basically divided in this 6 categories here. And that informs me a lot more which are the sections that might be problematic. And I can even change the cluster. Instead of seeing clusters by topic, see it by question. And there are 30 questions here, right? So here you see question 1 to 10, but I could have put all my 30 questions all together. I see, for example, that question 17 is really a problematic one with the scores in general. I mean, well, all the students, right, got a very good post, better post results than question 17. So I'll hover on top of this and tells me what question 17 was all about and what the students mostly answered. Oops, I have to stick to this, right? At B, but the right answer was B, and most students picked A. All right, so what else I wanted to see here? I wanted to say here, no, most students picked B, and the right answer should be A, right? What I want to say here is, yeah, so I like to see this breakdown by topic is one of my favorite ones. If you have many courses, you would go here, compare multiple courses. As you start, right, you can select your data set. So you can go to your data here or your data set here and select many other sessions for you to compare. The next tab I like to go and use is this your course over time. And because I had already introduced, I had already used this user before, right? And I introduced this first class. They are both the same, so you see the same. What I liked about this is that, let me see, is that, so you can plot here now for the first time, see different ways of measuring how much your students learn through this effect size or through the normalized gain. And you see them cited a lot in the papers in PER for physics. Perhaps normalized gain you see cited more often. Gain, the word gain, you see the G percentage you see cited more in the physics literature, and in other literature in education you see the effect size a lot, and it's growing in physics education research too. These are the ways that instead of using just the scores, right, physics education research use effect size and normalized gain. And there is a difference between them, and what do they mean, and what the FCI probes is in essence, how much traditional learning versus interactive engagement techniques are being used in a class. And so Fisport has all these websites inside fisport.org that explain under expert recommendations, what is the normalized gain? What is it and when should I use it? How it is calculated, right? Also, there is on Fisport also a page that explains what is the effect size, what is it, when and how should I use it, and what are the ranges where I would have a small effect size, medium or large, what is it considered medium, small, large in the literature, and etc., right? So you can read a lot more about this, but also as we move on down here, you see the summary of your results. This is the average gain that you see so cited in the literature, the letter G. This is the effect size, the letter D that you see in literature as well, mostly outside physics, but it's growing in physics too, education research. You see a summary of pre-scores, right, post-scores for your class. And you have the expert recommendations over here that probably, as this is corresponding to what we call a small gain in the literature in physics, then it means that this class probably relies mostly on the interpretation of traditional lecture passive learning rather than more interactive engagement methods that you can include in your class in many different ways. So it invites you to start looking at some interactive engagement methods here, peer instruction, use more interactive simulations in class, interactive lecture simulations, etc. They have a plethora of recommendations over here. And finally, the last thing I want to say and leave and let the Adrian and Sam talk about is, I think I have to go here to the histogram. Yeah, there is a PDF report that you can actually look at that, download and print and say, and have the data, all main data summarized about your class. I thought this was so cool. And yeah, this is something I hadn't seen before. Well, I last time I used, I didn't have that. Adrian and Sam and participants, if you have questions, please, it's the time. Adrian, Sam, anything else you wanted me to highlight here? I can go back to your.
The only other thing you could show is the split by. Or do you see above
Yes,
the legend?
totally.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. We can now split by and analyze your grade and try to triangulate your grade, say, and analyze how your students did. Say here, I can put their scores. Oops.
Oh no.
Uh-oh. Oh no.
Something unexpected happened.
If you go
Okay,
to the
yeah, I
course
did.
over
It
time.
flushed. It
Yeah.
flushed through. It worked. So here we have the scores in the test in the FCI.
If you go to the your scores over time tab, it has the histograms or the bar chart, so it's a little easier.
It is.
Let's see. And if you unclick the show tips, they won't keep popping up. But
I can't remember, where do I unclick that?
oh,
Just
it just
one
went away. Next time it comes up, we can.
Split by. Let's try by gender. Okay. Okay. So, now it showed the tip. Let me see.
So if you unclick the show tips, you see there's like a little check mark in that white box. Then they will stop coming up.
Thank you. Got it. Done.
Then they should go away.
All
Boy,
right.
I didn't realize that we had made such sexist data, fake data.
You're
Oh
right.
gosh, that's awful.
You can see it
So
by
if your data looks like this, you're doing something wrong. Or society is doing something wrong, which it is, but that's a little horrific,
higher
the
level of
gender gap there.
So algebra or calculus, algebra versus calculus.
Yes.
So
So in this case, the students who took algebra, who've taken algebra, are doing better than the students who
yeah.
took calculus.
So that is very inspiring.
Yeah, and this is
This is the effect
so this
size,
is like
yeah.
on. Okay.
And
Oh, the effect size. So that probably means they had a bigger change.
Right, and you can
Yeah.
change it to the score.
Got it. So matched score, and I really wanted to show just one semester here, but it's the same data, you understand. And so what we are seeing here then in blue is the students that got A's, and then at the end of the semester got B's, and right, C's and D's, and also the higher the grade here corresponded to a higher post-test score. So it seems like a pretty matched distribution, almost straight line, but that's why I like to look at the effect size, because with the effect size, I love the effect size now. So as you guys read more from the literature, maybe for us at two-year college, because our samples are in general small, the gain is more affected when there are more statistical troubles with the gain value when we talk about small class sizes. And the effect size, although it seems to be more statistically robust for samples like at a community college where our class sizes are small, just 20 students or so. So if your sample is small, maybe the effect size is the best one for us to start pushing more on in that idea, to have a better idea. But what it's saying here is that basically the students that got, say, a B, they had a bigger learning impact, learn more. There was a stronger learning impact for the students that got a B than, say, even for the students that got an A. So somehow the students that got a B, they came from, say, a lower background knowledge and really raised up, lifted up, went up above at a higher grades of increase and improvement.
And one thing,
than
one thing to mention here with it is like, so this will show you the split, you know, the differences by whatever factors you've put in there. But it does take some work to kind of think about, well, what is the interpretation of these things? What does this mean? So for example, if this were my class data, I might interpret that as a ceiling effect for the A students. Like they may have come in already knowing a lot of physics and gotten a high pre-score, and there just wasn't that far up for them to go on the assessment, whereas the B student still had more to learn. That's one way to interpret it. I mean, and this graph is really interesting because it actually shows the students who got D's and F's are doing worse on the post-test than the pre-test.
Yes.
So, you know, if this were my class and I saw this data, I would be very concerned about what was happening with these students, you know, that are getting D's and F's and that are doing worse. And I would start thinking about what can I do early in my class to reach out to these students and try to offer more support, so that this doesn't happen, because whatever's happening there with those students is if this were my class, I would say my class is doing a very poor job of serving the students who are kind of coming in with the lowest scores and not, there's a lot of students here that are getting lost in my class. So that's how I would interpret that if I saw that.
Yeah, perhaps that would be the most important interpretation over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And another thing, these things that Glenda's splitting by, these were, remember when we uploaded the data, there was those optional columns that had the student data, and that's what makes this possible, is any of these things. And that's why some of these are black and some of these are gray. So the ones that are black are the ones that were in your data file that you uploaded, and the ones that are gray are not in your file, so you can't split by them. But you know, you could see like, oh, this one's gray, but I'd like to split by it, and I actually have this data. You can go back later and add that to your data set. And the other thing to say about this is the titles of those columns are fixed in the Data Explorer, but the actual content is not. So whatever like labels for those that you use. So for example, the grades, like it can be split into A whatever, it could just be A, B, C, or some people do grades by numbers instead of by letters. And so kind of whatever categories you put in there, we'll accept. Another great example of that is gender. So people are pushing for equity now to include more options, non-binary or whatever for gender. And if you put those into if those are in your data file, we will sort by them. And like in this case, it says M and F for data, but it could have said like male and female, or, and it could have had like non-binary and other. And so really, like any labels that are in your data file, that's what we use. You're not restricted in what labels you use for any of those categories.
Yeah. This, it's really easy to see when you're looking at this, how this is very beneficial for an individual instructor analyzing their courses and how their courses are doing in serving their students. Could you provide for our participants some reasoning why it might be a good idea to contribute their data to this national, it would ultimately becomes a national data set?
Yeah, so one of the things there is being able to compare your data to the national average. And that national average comes from the data in our system. So the more data that we have in our system, the better we're able to calculate that national average. One thing we'd like to be able to do here is split that national average into basically split it according to those questions you answered, the optional questions about the style of your teaching, and being able to say, oh, let's compare to other classes that use interactive engagement or traditional lecture, or this compare to students like mine, and be able to split those by more categories, like maybe similar institution types. But in order to protect anonymity of students and instructors and institutions, we can only split that data if we have enough to preserve the anonymity set. So the more people that upload, the more data we're able to use, make this more useful for people.
I'd also just like to, make a plug, because that's part of what we are doing in optics. The more two-year college data that we get in there, the more that, those students, and that's two-year college physics students are a significant number of the students taking introductory physics. So the more two-year college faculty use this, the more representative of our students that data is going to be. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. And we're actually later this year, because your team got funding to do this, we will be adding a feature where you can actually split. When you upload, if you say that your institution is a two-year college, or if you tell us, you actually don't even have to say that your institution is a two-year college. You just tell us your institution, and we figure out whether it's a two-year college. And if it is, then you're able to compare your data only to two-year colleges or to the whole national average, because this national average right now includes both four-year colleges and two-year colleges all mixed together. But by the end of this year, you'll be able to split it and compare to just the two-year college data in there.
That will be awesome. So just, I remember a while ago when I started uploading a lot of things, and I saw that there was a mistake in one of my files, and it was one, and then I wanted to delete it. And I found that that was not easy to do at all, because this is really going to the national average. So I then started communicating with Sam, because you send an email to Sam, etc. And why do you want to delete, and what's going on and all, because this is really, we don't want any fake data to go into this national average and etc. So this is really going to a big data bank, and it's what's being used to calculate that dashed line over there, etc. So at the end of the day, I think all that I had to do is I edited the file. There was something I could have fixed without deleting and re-uploading, etc.
Yeah, actually, we can show that if you go over to your data, we can show you how you can, if you click on the action next to one of those, you can, click on that again, replace data files. So like if you found an error in one of your data files and you want to replace it, you just click on that and it lets you re-upload a new file that will be associated with the same data that you already put for your class and course. So you can use this menu to edit the information about your data if there's an issue. And if you really need to delete it, you can click on other and it will send me an email and I will pester you and then delete it for you if you really need it to. But we try to make it so that you can just replace it if there was an error and not delete it.
And anytime you gather more student information for that class that you already uploaded, you can always append more student information for the same class here, upload student information and so on, right? Like the gender or the major or the final grade or the background, mathematical background, etc. Any ethnical information, if you're collecting that, etc. You can upload later too.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you click down on instructors, if there's somebody in your department who's like a departmental coordinator who handles the assessments for the multiple instructors, you're allowed to upload data for other people too. If you work at multiple institutions, you can put multiple institutions in there. So there's a lot of options for what you can do.
So in my school, I was the one uploading for everyone. So I put the different instructor, etc. But I was the one doing everything.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Could you please put the link for the evaluation?
My goodness, it's time.
Yes, please.
So, wow. So to all our participants, I also want to post this online. Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. All the clicking, but let me post this link now here in our chat. Where did it go? Where did it go? Yes. There we go. So there is a quick evaluation, right? This is a grant funded workshop. So we really, really need that information, how useful this was for you. And so we really appreciate that you complete this evaluation. That is really important for us. This is a QR code for that same evaluation. So please, please, please complete the evaluation after this workshop. That would be really important. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And does anybody have any other questions, comments at this point?
So if we're going to upload our data, we would of course log in with our own college email, correct? And
yes,
that would be our, okay, making sure.
Yeah, the test accounts were just for the test data so that we know not to include that test data in the national average. But yes, please use your own account for your own data.
But I could keep playing around with that test account today or later or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hola, Martin from Uruguay. Is he still there? All right. Yes, go on. Yes.
Yeah, I joined later, so I didn't check with that. So I'm using simplified version.
Can
I still use that one in here?
Let me see if we can do that. I am trying to, that's such a good question that I don't know the answer to. It should be, I think we might not have added that functionality yet.
So what's the simplified version?
The question is much simpler and easier to read because the FCI, I found out that when I try to students, it took a long time for them to understand the questions. So I bet they are using more in high school for the simplified version. Yeah, but I tried that way to lower the time, to shorten the time of testing in the class. So, but I wondered, it is better to use FCI than as FCI to put them in the system as the college information.
Yeah, the only real reason that it's better to use the FCI than the simplified FCI is just that more other people use the FCI, and so it makes it easier if you want to compare to national averages. I think the simplified version, right, it's not that the FCI is any better than the simplified FCI, but that there aren't as many people giving it, and so there's not as much of a comparison. It looks like we don't have that functionality to add the simplified FCI version yet, but I think we have most of that in the back end. We just haven't turned it on yet. If you give me your email address, I can let you know when that functionality is ready.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other input, question, information? So are we going to use the Data Explorer in the future? Not hard, right? It saves a lot of time. Yeah, and you can download all the data from the FCI with the scores and things that you can upload as an Excel file and make your own plots if you want to plot different things against different things, right? Yep. So I wanted to make a plot of the gain versus the effect size to see if I found a linear correlation, as I know there's some papers about that, etc. So yeah, and later on you can explore even further. So I thank everyone for your participation, for coming here. Thank you very much, Sam and Adrian, our experts here. And Sam and Adrian, I am sure they are always available if you need, if you have further questions and how to use something in Fizzport, or suggestions of something you'd like to see in Fizzport that is not there yet, etc. I'm sure Sam and Adrian are welcome those suggestions, and you can send them through us in Optics. We will send that directly to them or to them. Sam, do you want to post your email, or Adrian, on the chat? Just in case.
You can also just write to editor@fizzport.org.
There we go.
There we go. And that goes to both of us. So that's always a good way to get in touch with us.
So suggestions and things that you don't see yet available, or questions, or you can send directly to them, or try our community as well. We try to help each other. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.